So I haven't done any videos focusing on just one single product for a little while. I really like doing multiple things in one video. I like doing comparisons. I like doing contrasts, sort of, overviews of entire categories. That's a little bit my thing. I feel like focusing on one bottle at a time. The format. There's a lot of whiskey channels which are just one or more white guys, possibly with facial hair, talking about one product at a time. And I don't want to beat those channels. I want to do my own thing. Nevertheless, I do recognize that occasionally my videos are too damn long. Sometimes you want them to be under 20 minutes. Let's see if we can keep this to 15. And sometimes I just have some stuff to talk about that doesn't really fit in with anything else I have on hand. So let's do a oneer this time. We're going to be reviewing a Clynelish. This is a 1996, bottled by Signatory. So this is a pick by Winebow, who are the folks who do distribution for Signatory in Chicago and the rest of Illinois. So this was distilled in October 8th, 1996, bottled in September 5th, 2017. So 20 years old, just under 21. This was a refill sherry butt for an output of 558 bottles at a strength of 56.3%. And it was cask number 8789. So let's pour a little bit of this and get going. As is my usual thing, I'm going to go through this once without water, then add a little bit of water to try to put some pressure on this guy, and then we'll give it another go and a final review. Yeah, give it just a second to sit down. Clynelish. If you're watching this video, I imagine you probably know a little bit about Clynelish already. One of the most northerly distilleries in the Scottish mainland. Obviously Pulteney is for the north, and some of the island distilleries are for the north still, but very, very far north. Anyhow, and there are some very special things about it. First of all, most of the time, if you were to try to picture the story of a larger, more modern, more industrial distillery taking the place of one of the most beloved distilleries in all of Scotch malt, namely what we can now call Brora, the original Clynelish distillery. The end of that story normally wouldn't be the replacement, larger, more modern distillery itself becoming one of the most renowned and beloved distilleries in Scotch malts. But that's what we've got. I mean, if you were to sort of make a list of premier cru, first growth malt distilleries in Scotland, Clynelish would probably be on there if you were, by consensus at least. So that's the first weird thing, is that, like, Clynelish makes a terrifyingly large amount of alcohol. So it's hard to get romantic about it. This is not Edradour. They're not like this tiny little outpost, off in the boonies, run by a couple guys. This is a huge operation. They make something like over 5 million gallons of pure alcohol every year. It's a ton of whiskey that they make. At some point, I'll get around to reviewing their standard 14-year-old. I have a little mini that I have sitting around the house. I just haven't popped it yet, but we'll get there. Second odd thing about Clynelish, especially relevant in this context, it doesn't always sit very well with sherry, and I think that has to do with the third interesting thing about Clynelish, which is that, how do I put this? So there's lots of, one of the fun things about Clynelish is you can take hours and hours pulling apart the nose and the nosing and tasting notes. There's lots of little things going on in the background. There's a lot of minerality. There's a lot of rocks. There's some really savory notes. There's some waxiness. There's some lemon sometimes. There's a kind of like tobacco smoky, campfirey smoky, not peat smoke. Maybe I think this is lightly peated, but it's not really something that's evident very often. But lots of little tiny things going on in the background, and you can focus on those so much that you forget what's kind of right in front of your eyes. What I mean is, let me back up a little bit. Again, let's go back to the list of what you might pick as premier cru malts. I think everyone would agree on like Lagavulin, Springbank definitely. You know, Highland Park maybe, Talisker maybe, Mortlock maybe, Glenfarclas maybe. And as you sort of start to build a little bit of list of maybe a couple of distilleries that are sort of at the top, by which I mean not everything they make is perfection, but they are just consistently making good to great whiskey. What you notice is a lot of their character is very, not always savory, but just not driven by overt fruitiness, by sort of overt malty fruitiness. And one of the things you forget, if you stay away from Clynelish a little bit, is just how damn fruity it is. Like, this is almost as malty and honeyed and, you know, pear and appley fruity as something like, you know, the maltiest malts, the Brevals, the Linkwoods, those guys. But it's just flanked by all those other weird flavor characteristics they can pick apart. So you almost forget the foreground there, which is holding it all together. And it's that maltiness that kind of makes Clynelish special, and which I think kind of gets in the way of sherry casks. Because you have sherry casks can be fruity, right? But it's a different kind of fruit. So, you know, you can kind of get a little bit of a conflict there. Anyways, let's get some tasting notes to the table. Clynelish, one of my absolute favorite distilleries. And but it's also one of those distilleries which is the most difficult to explain to someone else. Well, you know, okay, what's so special about it? Is it really peaty? No. Is it? Surely it's very heavily sherried then. No, not usually. Except this has a fair bit of sherry on it. Is it? Does it have a really heavy kind of character to it, like maybe a Springbank? No, not so much. So, you know, you have to sort of explain what the hell's going on. It takes a long time to explain what the hell is the appeal of this stuff. Anyways, let's get into this bottling, which is we're already almost 8 minutes in, so I'm not going to make 15, am I? All right, let's go. On the nose of this Signatory 1996 Clynelish. Okay, this is a lot of Clynelishes are dominated by the distillate. This one is not. This one, at least, you know, without water, at strength, is very cask dominant. We're getting black pepper, ground pepper, all over the place. Prunes, a kind of chocolatey note, like a malted milk ball note. White chocolate, more so than like dark chocolate or anything. Some Ovaltine in there, and even like those cheap cigar, the Swisher Sweets, which I always love the smell of those things. They're terrible to smoke, but they'll just burn the inside of your mouth out. But they smell lovely, and I'm kind of getting a Swisher Sweet thing on the nose here. But then, you know, behind all that, once you sort of pass that initial overcoat of sherry, you're starting to get some of the distillate. There, sorry. Very gravelly, very clay-driven. There's a lot of minerality to this, but also apple cheese. Apple cheese is a note I've used in the past. It's this stuff I was introduced to it by my wife and her family. It's this Eastern European thing where you're basically boiling down apples until what you get is this fruity toffee, basically. It ages forever, and you just tear a piece off and throw it in your mouth and like chew it. And it's very distinctive and fun, and it should be in your tasting note portfolio. Apple cheese. There's also like a maritime note to this, a sea breeze kind of note. But along with that, a little bit of salted licorice. So like, you know, expensive European licorice that comes in the paper, you know, the brown paper. Orange peel, forest honey. So not sweet honey. This is like bitter, German honey. Bitter sour honey, actually. A little pineapple in there, actually. Some wax, some like I want to say herbal tea, but it's not really herbal tea. This is because herbal tea implies like something that came out of like a box or like a bag. This is more like you actually went outside and just picked up a bunch of herbs that you found growing and sort of put them in with some boiling water. It's that kind of herbal tea. Like maybe a little bit of a nuttiness, like a one macadamia nut. Exactly one, no more. And some kind of a campfire smoke element to this as well. It's a very complex nose. The cask and the spirit are not, totally married, and again the cask is taking the lead on this, but they're also not fighting against each other. They're sort of running right up alongside in their notes. On the palate, very orangey and very chocolate. You know those oranges you buy at the grocery? It's the chocolate oranges. This is the dark chocolate one. The dark chocolate one, and you have to sort of smack them on the table and break them apart before you can eat the little orange slices. That's the first major tasting note on this. Lots of ground pepper again, salted licorice again. Nutshells, like both fresh nutshells, but also like burned like walnut shells. And this is a little bit annoying as a tasting note, but Oloroso sherry. I know that's probably pretty obvious because it's a sherry cask, but Oloroso sherry plays into the tasting notes here. That's there's definitely a tobacco note, especially coming into the transition to the finish. Like expensive cigarettes, like those cigarettes that blend a little bit of Perique in with the burley. So that kind of cigarette. Campfire smoke again. Lots, ground pepper. I think I already mentioned that. But then also the waxiness of Clynelish. The apple cheese thing is still there. The pineapple thing, it's almost a dried pineapple thing now. That maritime note, the forest honeys, the sort of honeydew style honeys, bitter sour honey, and that kind of exhausts what I can get out of it. I mean, there's a kind of leathery nature to this, like an old book, like you sort of chewed the cover off an old book. There's lots going on here. It doesn't feel totally knit together, but it's very, very good. So I'm going to give this a couple squirts of water, and we'll come back to it. That's 4. No, one more. So this is, I mean, the main reason I'm doing this video is because I've had this bottle sitting around for a while, and I've been wanting to review it, and I've been wanting to review it in context of other things, but I couldn't really find the right context to review this because it's a Clynelish, it's 20 years old, and it's from a sherry butt, and that doesn't really sort of fit in nicely with lots of other stuff that I talk about. It's just a nice malt. It's very classical in lots of ways. This reminds me, the part of when of sherry maturation working, isn't just that you get a pure sherry bomb. It's the sort of conflict you get between a very assertive distillate, which is, the malty, some kind of characterful distillate, whether it be Mortlock, whether it be Lagavulin, whatever the hell you're starting with, kind of, locking heads with your sherry cask a little bit. There has to be a little bit of a contrast. It can't just be one winning out over the other. And I think that's what's happening here. This is not a spectacular whiskey. We're not talking about, Springbank, sherry matured Springbank in the 80s or something like that. This is not up there, but it's doing, what it should be doing as the kind of malt that it is, which makes it a little bit special. I mean, I don't know why some sherry casks work with sometimes with Clynelish and other times not, but this one is going well. It was kind of a risk to buy because I knew the reputation of this style, but it was. I did not pay full price for this. It was over $100. I did not pay for that. But it seemed worth the risk because I like Clynelish and I like sherry. All right, let's head into this now that I've been babbling long enough. Hopefully this has had time to sit. With water, the pepperiness is still there. Like all the aspects of the sherry cask are still there. Maybe the chocolatey thing kind of recedes a little. But it's really with water, what I'm really getting is the spirit reasserting itself. This is much more fruity, much more appley. Some Bosc pear, a lot of like spiced apple pie. Like you took an apple pie and just shot it through with cinnamon and pepper and maybe some clove and cardamom and nutmeg. Very rocky, minerally, very waxy still. A little overstewed tea now coming through, like an overstewed aromatic black tea. Maybe something from China. Don't ask me to push to get specific. It's been a long day. And the sherry is still there. You still get those heavier Oloroso, maybe Amontillado. I'm going to say Oloroso notes. But kind of receding a little bit, kind of pulling back in the back. And then on the palate, yeah, kind of the same story. Still really peppery, really pepper driven, and you can kind of detect those sherry elements, the dried fruit, all that stuff going on. But again, the appley, the perry, the fruity malty malt, waxy, smoky, tobacco-y, campfire-y character of Clynelish is starting to come through and push to the forefront. Yeah, kind of like a sherried spicy apple pie. But throw a shot of like tobacco, like really nice cigarette tobacco, salted licorice, wax rocks, all that stuff into it. Put all that in your apple pie. And you've soaked in sherry, and that's kind of what you're getting. I haven't mentioned how drinkable this is actually. I don't know. I've had a lot of this, and I haven't owned it that long. I just happen to. Like a lot of the time when I'm just looking for a drink for the night and I'm tired, this is what I go for. It's very just drinkable, sessionable, and that's a strong value in a malt of this sort. Let me try to give this one more shot. It's not spectacular, actually. I think I generally find myself more impressed by Clynelish's after the turn of the millennium, sort of from the aughts onwards. The 90s stuff is a little on and off for me, but this is very good. Not great, but very good. I'm going to give this... Oh, what am I going to give this? Let's give this an 88 plus. The plus because it is so damn drinkable. It just has a
digesty to close off the night. And I'll leave it at that. And I'm over my 20 minutes, damn it. Oh well, sorry. 88 plus. Well done, Signatory. Well done, Winebow. Good pick. And I hope you found this informative. Thanks for watching. Cheers.